"Remove the brooch," Lady Beatrice Vale ordered, loudly enough for the nearest guests to hear. "It belonged to my family, not to a woman who sews gowns for wages." Clara Vale stood beneath 300 candles while whispers travelled across the ballroom. Beatrice had invited her as a relation, then introduced her as the seamstress responsible for repairing the guests' torn hems. Clara did not touch the silver hawthorn pinned above her heart. "My mother gave it to me on the night she died," she replied. "You may question my position, Lady Beatrice, but you will not rewrite her life." At the far end of the room, Edmund Ashcombe, Duke of Hawthorne, went completely still. He had seen that brooch before. Years earlier, it had rested beside a document his father had ordered him never to discuss. "Before we continue, tell us what you would have done in her place." Beatrice's smile did not falter, though colour rose beneath the powder on her cheeks. "My dear Clara, grief has made you confused. Your mother was never mistress of Vale House." A few guests looked away. Others leaned closer, eager for the next humiliation. Clara had expected cruelty. She had not expected Beatrice to deny her mother before half of London society. Lady Augusta Vale stood beside her daughter in a gown of dark blue silk. She had been Clara's stepmother for 12 years and her enemy for nearly as long. "This is not the place for one of your scenes," Augusta said. "Return the brooch and leave quietly." Clara met Herr Gazet. "You invited me here. We offered you kindness. You offered me a place beside the servants' entrance." A murmur passed through the room. Beatrice stepped closer and lowered her voice, though not enough to prevent others from hearing. "You should be grateful you were allowed inside at all." Clara looked around the ballroom. She recognized several women whose gowns she had altered during the past year. 2 had praised her skill that very morning. Neither acknowledged her now. Clara had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. She had repaired torn sleeves, shortened morning dresses, and worked until her fingers stiffened in winter. Every spare coin had paid for inquiries into her father's estate. She had not come to the ball seeking acceptance. She had come because of a letter hidden inside her mother's sewing chest. Lady Beatrice extended her hand. "The brooch." "No." Beatrice's expression sharpened. "You cannot prove it belongs to you, nor can you prove it belongs to you." That answer drew a few restrained smiles from the younger guests. Beatrice saw them. Her humiliation had begun to change direction, and she knew it. She reached for the brooch herself. Before her fingers touched Clara's gown, a man's voice cut through the room. "Lady Beatrice." The Duke of Hawthorne approached without haste. He was tall, composed, and dressed in black evening clothes without excessive ornament. People moved aside before he asked them to. His reputation had that effect. Edmund had inherited one of the largest estates in the north. He rarely raised his voice and never repeated an instruction. Beatrice withdrew her hand at once. "Your Grace, I apologize that you have witnessed this unpleasantness. I witnessed you attempt to remove an object from another woman's person." Beatrice stared at him. "My family's object. That has not been established." Lady Augusta moved forward. "Surely, your Grace does not mean to involve yourself in a domestic misunderstanding." Edmund's attention remained on the brooch. Its silver edges were worn. A small hawthorn branch had been engraved across the center, and beneath it sat 3 tiny letters, E-A-H. His father's initials. Edmund remembered seeing the piece once when he was 17. His father had been standing in the old library with a nervous gentleman Edmund now recognized from a faded portrait at Vale House, Sir Thomas Vale. The 2 men had been signing a document. A woman had waited beside them, holding the silver brooch. Edmund had entered without permission. His father had shut the document and sent him away. Later that evening, the Duke had warned him never to speak of what he had seen. Edmund had obeyed for 19 years. Now the brooch rested on the gown of a disgraced seamstress. "Miss Vale," he said, "may I ask where you obtained it?" Beatrice answered before Clara could. She stole it. Clara turned to her. From whom? My mother. Then she should remember when it was stolen. Augusta's mouth tightened. Edmund looked from one woman to the other. Miss Vale asked a reasonable question. Augusta lifted her chin. The brooch disappeared shortly after my husband's death. That was 7 years ago, Clara said. I have worn it since I was 19. She looked directly at Edmund. My mother gave it to me 12 years ago, 3 days before she died. Did she tell you where she received it? She said it was given to her when she became Mrs. Vale. The words struck the room harder than a shout. Beatrice laughed, but the sound was brittle. Your mother was never Mrs. Vale. Clara felt the familiar anger rise inside her. She refused to let it govern her voice. My father called her his wife. Privately, perhaps. He called me his daughter. Men say many foolish things when burdened by obligation. For a moment, Clara saw her father's study as it had been after his death. His desk drawers had been emptied. His letters had vanished. Augusta had stood beside the fireplace and informed Clara that no valid record of her parents' marriage existed. By the following week, Clara had been removed from Vale House. She had received 2 trunks, £30, and a warning never to use the family name in society. Clara had kept the name. It was the only inheritance Augusta had failed to take. Edmund noticed the change in Clara's expression. It was not weakness, it was control. Miss Vale, he said, I should like to speak with you privately. Beatrice turned towards him. Surely there is no need. There is. Our engagement announcement is due before supper. No announcement has been made. Augusta's face changed. Only slightly, but Clara saw it. The Duke had not yet agreed to marry Beatrice. The entire ball had been arranged to suggest that he had. Edmund gestured towards the library. Miss Vale. Clara hesitated. Entering a private room with an unmarried gentleman would normally invite more scandal, yet scandal already surrounded her. I shall leave the door open, Edmund said. It was a small courtesy. Clara followed him. The library at Vale House had once belonged to her father. Augusta had changed the carpets and replaced his hunting prints, but the scent of leather and cedar remained. Clara stopped beside the desk, where Sir Thomas had once taught her to calculate estate rents. Edmund left the door ajar. Music resumed in the ballroom, though the conversations remained subdued. Show me the brooch, he said. Clara did not remove it. You may examine it where it is. His eyes lifted to hers. You believe I might take it? I believe powerful people often call possession proof. Edmund did not appear offended. An observation drawn from experience? Several experiences. He stepped closer, though he maintained a respectful distance. The initials were clearer now. E. A. H. His father's full name had been Edward Arthur Hawthorne. Do those letters mean anything to you? Clara asked. Yes. She waited. He gave no further answer. You asked to speak with me privately, Your Grace. If you intend to protect Lady Beatrice, I would prefer you did it plainly. I have no intention of protecting dishonesty, but you do intend to marry her. That matter is not settled. Lady Beatrice believes otherwise. Lady Beatrice believes several things which may not be true. For the first time that evening, Clara nearly smiled. She stopped herself. Edmund moved towards the desk. You said your mother received the brooch when she became Mrs. Vale. Do you possess evidence of the marriage? Not enough. What do you possess? A letter. Written by whom? I do not know. The signature is missing. Then it may prove nothing. It mentions a settlement. His expression changed. Clara saw it. You know something, she said. I know that my father used that emblem on private legal matters. The answer was cautious, but it was more than Clara had expected. Was he involved with my parents? I cannot yet say. You mean you will not say? I mean I was 17 when I saw the brooch, and I was given no explanation. Clara studied him. He could have dismissed her. He could have returned her to the ballroom and allowed Beatrice to complete the humiliation. Instead, he had admitted uncertainty. It did not make him trustworthy. It made him useful. She reached inside the small pocket sewn into her gown and removed a folded piece of paper. The letter was stained at one corner and torn across the lower edge. Several lines remained legible. Edmund accepted it carefully. He read in silence. The marriage settlement has been witnessed and placed beyond interference. Keep the Hawthorne token with you. Should Sir Thomas fail to fulfill his promise, present it beside the signed copy. The remainder of the paragraph had faded. At the bottom, only the first letter of a signature remained. Edmund read it twice. Where did you find this? Inside the lining of my mother's sewing chest. When? 3 weeks ago. Why were you searching it? One of the lower panels came loose. The letter had been stitched beneath the wood. Edmund looked at her. That suggests your mother feared someone would find it. My mother feared Lady Augusta. That is an accusation. It is a conclusion. Clara took the letter back. My father died without warning. Before I could enter his study, Lady Augusta had removed every private paper. She then claimed my parents had never married. And the family solicitor? Mr. Julian Mercer said the records were incomplete. Incomplete? He refused to use the word missing. Edmund glanced towards the open door. Lady Augusta stood in the ballroom beyond it. She appeared to be speaking to a guest, but her attention was fixed on the library. Why attend tonight? He asked. Because Lady Beatrice sent an invitation. That is not an answer. Clara placed the letter inside her pocket. She wanted me here so she could disgrace me before your engagement was announced. I wanted to know why she suddenly considered me dangerous. Edmund's face remained composed, but his eyes hardened. You believe the invitation was an act of fear. I believe cruelty is rarely performed without an audience, unless the audience serves a purpose. That answer stayed with him. He looked again at the brooch. If a marriage settlement existed, there should be another record. There should. A solicitor's copy, a witness register, or an entry in an estate account. Yes. And you have found none. Not yet. Edmund walked to the window. Beyond the glass, carriages waited in a long line beneath the lamps. Every important family in the city seemed to be represented inside the house. If Clara's claim was genuine, Beatrice's fortune might not belong to her. The proposed marriage would become a legal and social disaster. More troubling still, his own father might have helped conceal the truth. Your Grace, Clara said, I am not asking you to believe me. He turned. What are you asking? Do not announce an engagement tonight. His expression cooled. You presume a great deal. I am asking for 1 week. You are asking me to delay a marriage negotiation because of a damaged letter and an old brooch. I am asking you not to bind yourself to a family that may have built its fortune upon theft. The directness of the statement would have offended most men in Edmund's position. It interested him. And if you are wrong, then Lady Beatrice loses 1 week. And if you are right, Clara looked towards the ballroom, then she has already taken 12 years from me. A silence followed. It was not an empty silence. Edmund was measuring risk, reputation, and obligation against a woman who had nothing but a letter and the courage to present it. At last, he spoke. I shall make no announcement tonight. Clara's shoulders remained straight, but relief moved across her face. Thank you. Do not thank me. I have promised nothing beyond delay. That is more honesty than I have received from this family in years. He returned to the desk and took a blank card from a drawer. Tomorrow morning, go to Mercer's office. Ask to inspect every entry connected to your father's estate during the month after his death. He will refuse. Give him this. Edmund wrote several lines and signed his name. Clara accepted the card. It instructed Mr. Mercer to provide her with access under the Duke of Hawthorne's authority. Why help me? She asked. I am not helping you. No, I am protecting myself from entering a marriage founded on fraud. Clara examined the card. A practical distinction. I prefer practical distinctions. From the ballroom came the sound of a glass striking the floor. Beatrice stood beyond the doorway. She had heard enough to understand that the engagement would not be announced. Her eyes settled on the card in Clara's hand. The humiliation she had planned had failed. Now she knew Clara possessed an ally. Clara returned Beatrice's star. For the first time since entering Vale House, she did not feel like an unwanted relation or a servant invited for sport. She felt like a threat, and Lady Beatrice looked afraid. Mr. Julian Mercer's office stood behind a narrow courtyard near Lincoln's Inn. Its windows were clean, its brass plate polished, and its clerk spoke as though every visitor had already wasted his time. Clara presented the Duke's card. The clerk read it twice, then disappeared behind a dark wooden door. Mr. Mercer received her 10 minutes later. He was a thin man in his late 50s, with careful hands and a habit of arranging every paper before answering a question. "His Grace has placed me in an awkward position," he said. "My family placed me in a worse one." Mercer did not smile. "You wish to inspect the Vale accounts. I wish to inspect every entry made during the month after my father died. That is an unusual request. So was removing his daughter from her home before the funeral flowers had faded." Mercer looked towards the closed door. "Miss Vale, I advised Lady Augusta according to the documents available." "Did you search for the documents that were not available?" His fingers stopped moving. Clara noticed. She placed her mother's damaged letter upon the desk. Mercer read the surviving lines. When he reached the words "Hawthorne token," his face lost color. "You have seen this phrase before," Clara said. "No. You answered too quickly." "I recognize the legal language." "Then recognize this." She turned the brooch to reveal the initials. Mercer rose from his chair. "I cannot assist you. You have not yet looked at the accounts. There is nothing there. Then opening them should cause no concern." He remained standing. For years, Clara had been dismissed because people mistook calmness for weakness. Mercer made the same error. She folded her hands. "His Grace asked for access. Refusing me means refusing him." Mercer slowly returned to his seat. At last, he unlocked a cabinet behind his desk. The account books were brought out one by one. Clara spent 2 hours reading entries recorded in narrow black ink: funeral expenses, servants' wages, payments to tradesmen. Then she found 3 transfers, authorized by Lady Augusta. The first went to a private storage company. The second went to a clerk named Samuel Finch. The third, larger than the others, was listed only as a household adjustment. "Who was Samuel Finch?" Clara asked. Mercer's expression closed. "A junior clerk." "What service did he perform?" "I cannot recall. The payment was made 2 days after my father's death." Mercer looked down. Clara understood. "He copied something. No such note appears in the account. But you know he did." Mercer removed his spectacles. "Finch left my employment shortly afterwards." "Where did he go?" "I do not know." "Did Lady Augusta pay him to leave?" "I cannot answer that. Because you do not know, or because the answer would damage you." Mercer's voice hardened. "You should be careful, Miss Vale. I was careful for 12 years. It allowed everyone else to remain comfortable." She copied the 3 entries and closed the ledger. Before leaving, she paused at the door. "If you remember where Samuel Finch sent his final package, I advise you to tell me before someone else does." That afternoon, Edmund received a sealed report from his estate steward. The Vale fortune appeared considerable, but several accounts were incomplete. Funds had been moved between trusts without clear authority. More troubling was an entry connecting Samuel Finch to Hawthorne Hall. A parcel had arrived from him 7 years earlier, addressed to Edmund's late father. Edmund went at once to the old library. His father's correspondence remained in locked cabinets that had not been opened since his death. Edmund searched until evening. At last, he found an envelope bearing Finch's name. It was empty. Someone had removed its contents. The library door opened. Lady Marian Ashcombe, Edmund's widowed aunt, entered with her walking stick resting against one arm. "You have your father's expression," she said. "The one he wore whenever duty became inconvenient." Edmund held up the envelope. "Do you know what was inside?" Marian looked at the name and turned away. That was answer enough. "What did my father give you?" Edmund asked. She lowered herself into a chair. "A document relating to Sir Thomas Vale." "Where is it?" "I returned it." "To whom?" "Lady Augusta." Edmund's anger was quiet. "Why?" "Your father had died. Augusta said the paper was a private family matter. She warned that releasing it would create scandal and damage Beatrice's future." "And Clara's future?" Marian's face tightened. "I was told Clara had no lawful claim. You had the document in your hands." "I did not read every page." "But you knew it mattered." "Yes." Edmund turned towards the window. For years, he had thought his family honor rested upon sound estates and respected names. Now he saw how easily respectability could become an excuse for silence. "Did you keep nothing?" he asked. Marian hesitated. "I copied the witness page into my household register. Your father had signed it. I feared I might someday regret returning the original." "You regret it now?" "I have regretted it every year." The register proved that a settlement had existed. It bore the signatures of Edmund's father, Sir Thomas Vale, and an unnamed second witness. But the page contained no description of the property. It would support Clara's claim. It would not establish it. 2 days later, several of Clara's wealthiest clients cancelled their appointments. One sent back an unfinished gown with a note accusing Clara of using forged letters to ensnare the Duke of Hawthorne. Beatrice's attack had begun. Clara's apprentice, Lucy, found her reading the note beside the cutting table. "Will we have to close?" the girl asked. "No, but 3 ladies have left." "Then we shall sew for women who pay for skill rather than gossip." Clara wrote a statement that afternoon. She accused no one directly. She requested an independent review of the Vale accounts and offered every document in her possession for examination. The statement appeared in 2 London papers the following morning. It cost her more clients. It also brought new ones. Shopkeepers' wives, widows, and professional women began arriving at her door. They said they had read her words and admired her refusal to hide. Edmund visited the workshop under the pretense of commissioning a gown for Lady Marian. He found Clara kneeling beside Lucy, correcting a difficult sleeve. "You have come to inspect my dangerous influence upon society," Clara said. "I have come because my aunt requires a gown." "Your aunt owns 12. She insists the 13th will restore her health." Clara almost laughed. Edmund placed Marian's register on the table. Clara read the copied witness page. Her fingers tightened at her father's signature. "This proves he signed a settlement." "It does not prove what the settlement contained. It proves Lady Augusta lied when she said no document existed." "Yes." Clara looked at him. "Your aunt returned the original?" "She did." "To Augusta?" "Yes." "Then Augusta may have destroyed it." Edmund did not offer false comfort. "She may have." Clara closed the register. For the first time since the ball, weariness broke through her composure. Edmund noticed, but did not reach for her. Instead, he said, "I have ordered every Hawthorne storage room searched. Finch's parcel may have contained a copy. And if it did not, then we continue." The word surprised her. "We." "I cannot pretend this concerns only your inheritance. My father witnessed the settlement. My aunt helped conceal it. My name is already part of the matter. That is not why you are here." "No." Clara waited. Edmund looked around the workshop. 6 women worked beneath broad windows. Each had a proper chair, good light, and a coal fire. He had visited grander rooms, where workers were treated with less dignity. "I am here because you could have used my name to seek sympathy," he said. "You did not. I do not want sympathy." "I know." And you still do not entirely believe me. I believe you believe every word. That is a very cautious compliment. It is the most honest one I can offer. If her courage has earned your respect, a quiet like will help more listeners discover her story. That evening, Lady Augusta arrived at Hawthorne House without an invitation. Beatrice entered behind her. "You have humiliated my daughter," Augusta said. Edmund remained behind his desk. "I declined to announce an engagement. You allowed society to believe Beatrice had been rejected for a seamstress. I rejected no one for Miss Vale. Then announce the engagement now." "No." Beatrice stepped forward. "You need the Vale investment. Your northern mills require rebuilding." Edmund's steward had given him the same warning. Without new capital, several projects would be delayed. Beatrice knew it. "That is true," he said. Relief appeared in Augusta's eyes. Then Edmund continued, "I will sell the London house before I marry into a family under investigation for fraud." Beatrice stared at him. "You would choose financial loss over me. I would choose it over dishonesty. The seamstress has bewitched you." "No." "She presented evidence. You presented pressure." Augusta's face hardened. "The Vale Trust will be read publicly on Monday. Beatrice will receive full control. Once that occurs, Clara's performance will end." Edmund rose. Then Monday should prove instructive. Clara spent the next 3 days studying her mother's sewing chest. The hidden letter had referred to a signed copy placed beyond interference, yet her mother had trusted no solicitor enough to name its location. Clara examined every drawer and panel. Inside the lid, her mother had embroidered a border of small flowers and numbers. Clara had always assumed they marked thread shades. Now she compared them with the estate entries she had copied. The first number matched Augusta's payment to the storage company. The second matched the date of the private wedding listed in Marion's register. The third matched a deposit number. Clara carried the chest to Mercer's office. He refused to see her. She remained in the waiting room until he agreed. When she showed him the embroidered numbers, his resistance finally broke. "Your mother arranged a secure deposit under her maiden name," he admitted. "You knew." "I suspected." "Where is it held?" "At the Royal Exchange Depository." "Who may open it?" Mercer looked at the brooch. "The holder of the token, with confirmation from the solicitor named in the original register." "You?" "Yes." Clara stood. "You will come with me." The deposit box contained the original marriage settlement, a private wedding record, and 4 letters written by Sir Thomas. The settlement confirmed that Clara's mother had been his lawful wife. It placed a substantial portion of the Vale property in trust for Clara. Lady Augusta had never possessed the authority to transfer it to Beatrice. Monday's reading took place in the great drawing room at Vale House. Trustees, solicitors, and invited members of society filled every chair. Augusta stood beside Beatrice with the confidence of a woman expecting victory. Clara entered alone. Edmund arrived moments later, but he did not take her arm. He understood that this was her claim to present. Mercer began reading. Before he reached the transfer of property, Clara interrupted. "I object to the trust as presented." Augusta rose. "You have no standing here." Clara placed the marriage settlement on the table. "I am Clara Eleanor Vale, lawful daughter of Sir Thomas Vale and his first wife, Eleanor Hartwell Vale. This document establishes my standing." Beatrice laughed. "A convenient discovery. Then allow Mr. Mercer to examine it." Mercer verified the signatures, seals, and registration numbers. Lady Marion's copied witness page matched the original. The estate accounts matched the deposit reference. The brooch matched the token described in the settlement. 3 separate clues confirmed the same truth. Augusta's confidence collapsed. Beatrice turned to Clara. "You returned for money and a duke." Clara faced the room. "The Duke ended his negotiations with you before this document was found. At that time I was still a seamstress with a damaged letter and no recognized name." She looked at Beatrice. I returned because you erased my mother's marriage and called her dishonorable. Wealth can be restored. A silenced life cannot. No one laughed now. The trustees declared the attempted transfer invalid. Augusta was removed from control of the Vale accounts. Mercer agreed to cooperate with the formal inquiry, accepting that his silence had helped the deception continue. Clara did not demand that Beatrice be left without support. She granted her stepsister a modest annual allowance. "You show me mercy now?" Beatrice asked bitterly. "No," Clara replied. "I show myself that I need not become you." 6 months later, Clara opened the Vale School of Dressmaking and Household Trades. Women were trained, paid fairly, and permitted to keep their earnings. Edmund sold his London house and funded the northern rebuilding without Vale money. Only after Clara's school was secure did he ask her to walk with him through its courtyard. "I have no intention of asking you to abandon this work," he said. "That is fortunate. I would divide my time between Hawthorne Hall and London. That sounds inconvenient for a duke." "It sounds necessary for a husband." Clara looked at him. "You have not yet asked me." Edmund removed no grand ring before kneeling. He offered no audience and no speech prepared for society. He simply held out his hand. "Clara Vale, will you build a life with me in which neither of us is required to become smaller?" She placed her hand in his. Yes. 1 year later, Clara entered the Hawthorne Winter Ball as Duchess of Hawthorne. Her mother's silver brooch remained pinned above her heart. The first guests she welcomed were the women from her workshop. If you enjoyed this original period romance, you are warmly invited to subscribe for another tale of love, honor, and hidden identity.